In an interview, Berlusconi says he'll step down.
Boobs. That's all I got.
In the immortal words of Nicki Minaj, boobs, 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 lot of boobs.
Welcome to the Halloween special of Heavy Storms and yeah, boobs.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't even bring up the most important debate, which is boobs versus ass. Like, this was just all boobs.
They had multiple small chest girls, and never once did they question the importance of the butt. It's a disgrace.
It's a shame. It really. It's just like, these guys are amateurs.
Oh, okay. Anyways, as I said, this is Heavy Storms. I'm joined by Megan, who's been with us a few times now, and an old friend of ours, Walt, who used to do the original series with us.
Hello.
He was with us for one of my favorite episodes, the Miracle Train episode.
I was there too.
I'll never forget Miracle Train. Best decision I ever made in my life. That was holy.
I remember just how much fun I had with that episode, and I figured it'd be fun to bring the band back together for a Halloween special.
No, we were together for... I'm sorry, you say Halloween? We were together for one fan service show. You found another fan service show, and it's like, oh, hey, I already have a crew for that.
Don't worry, I've been exposing everyone to bad fan service shows lately. Just last episode, I made Tom, Joe, and Danny all watch Who Is Emoto.
I haven't finished that. I'm like halfway through it, but I am so disappointed none of you brought up how King of the Hill did the plot line better.
Wow.
Oh my god, I remember that. Anyways, let's just get to the point. We're here to talk about Highschool DxD. I decided for the Halloween special I wanted to do a longer anime than usual, since there's a lot of bad shows that actually get to have more episodes because the world isn't fair. So I decided to go with one of the more controversial ones in terms of varying opinion, because there are actually a lot of people who like Highschool DxD and a lot of people who don't, and I wanted to know why that was. So I figured we just watch all 3 seasons over 2 months and then just cover it for Halloween because there are demons in it, so I guess that counts.
Yeah, that counts. There's devils. They get into costumes sometimes. And out of them.
And everyone's like named after an actual mythological figure constantly to the point of annoyance. I'm going on this school trip too. Azazel!
Okay, can I point out though, this bugged me way more than it should have, and this is skipping over a lot of stuff. Why was Odin the pervy old man when they already established Greek mythology and Zeus was like the perfect character for that?
Because by the time these books were being written would probably be about the time that the Thor movie first came out. So like, oh, Norse gods, Loki, that's a thing.
Oh my god, we have Marvel exploitation in this as well. I didn't even notice that.
This rips on a lot of things, but we'll get to that.
Anyways, I should, let's talk about the people who made this show possible and give some context of what it actually is. Because this is one of those shows, if you've never seen it, you just think, oh, boobs. And it is that, but it is so much more than just boobs. Oh, so much more.
Tits and nonsense.
It's light novel.
Yeah, it was based on a series of novels written by one Ishibumi, who has done nothing else, of course.
I mean, with this, did he have to do more?
Yeah, I mean, with Highschool DxD, I think he's set for a while, and he doesn't really have to do anything else for yet. The studio behind this was TNK, and their list is very tragic.
How tragic is it?
The most notable shows I could find on their list that I would consider good are UFO, Ultra Maiden Valkyrie, and Konosuke no Miko.
Oh.
And I like Konosuke no Miko, but even I'll admit that's that should not be the crown jewel of a studio.
No.
And for the other shows on that list, Seven Mortal Sins, which aired very recently. Tom actually liked that show, so that means it's either brilliant or terrible. Who knows?
I think we know the answer.
One of the later seasons of Ikitozen, Extreme Executioner or something like that, was spelt with X's and no E's in front, of course.
For extreme!
Daimedalor, the sound robot, which was that ecchi show that aired a while back about the guy who powers up his robots by gripping a girl's boobs.
How appropriate.
So wait, they ripped off High School DxD to make a mech show?
Actually, since I brought that one up, I want to say that the first half of it is terrible, but then the second half is actually kind of good because they kill off the main character for a while and bring in two weirdly horny teenagers who have no idea what they're doing, and suddenly it gets funny. And like it even reaches the point where they're making a point that like the good guys are probably actually the bad guys, and they're like going to destroy a whole city just so they can beat the other guy. It's weirdly subversive, but not enough because so much of it is terrible.
I guess really the question then is, was it intentionally subversive?
Yes, but it was also intentionally not subversive for the other half of it. It's a fucking mess.
Fair enough.
Speaking of a fucking mess, let's describe the plot.
School days.
Oh.
And we're not describing the plot just yet because some of the staff on this list are wild. The director, Tetsuya Yanagishisawa, I hope I pronounced that right. He directed most of the shows I just mentioned. Konosuke no Miko, Die Midler, Shattered Angels, which was just a crossover of the various characters.
Oh yeah, that was like the Kaishaku version of Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, but because it's Kaishaku, it's shit.
Yeah, Kaishaku just like made Konosuke no Miko one day by complete accident, and it was actually kind of good. And then they decided to make a sequel, and it was one of the worst things I've ever read. It was so bad it got canceled, and nobody has shown any interest in making an anime of it. And they made an anime of Shattered Angels.
Yep.
And he also did a Heaven's Lost Property movie, and that's like one of those franchises I know exists, but I don't know anything about.
Flying Panties. That's all you need to know. Flying Panties.
Okay, then this is all about a character. It gets weirder when you get to the script and composition head, Takako Yoshioka, who's done a lot of the shows I've mentioned. Die Midler, of course, but he's also done Dear S, which is terrible. Elfen Lied, which is hard to describe. Familiar of Zero, Ikitozen, including season 1, I think. And then it gets weird. Oh wait, hang on. I made this very slapdash. Before I get to the good shows, I want to mention the Senran Kagura anime, Seven Deadly Sins, of course. Sekeri, you know that show that was basically... Yeah, that was the show where, like, the girls were Pokemon.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it was a battle show where, like, human beings can make pacts or, like, capture women who are, like, slaves or something. It was bad.
Surprising.
There was Magical Girl Raising Project, which, Queen's Blade Season 2, yeah. Testament and New Sister Devil, which explains a lot about this fucking show.
So you're saying these are experts in the field of crappiness.
Hang on, he's done good shows and like interviews with Monster Girls, Watamoe, and Your Lie in April.
The fuck?
I'm kind of proud that like you were listing off shows and that I hadn't heard of most of the bad stuff, and then you said like the 3 good shows and it's like, oh yeah, I've heard of those. I was very proud of myself just then.
I can see like Watamoe and interviews with Monster Girls, but Your Lie in April like threw me off completely.
One of these things is not like the other.
I also like to mention the character designer because I'm kind of weirdly interested in them. They're named Juji Goto, And they've worked on Dai Midler and one of the Ikitosen seasons and School Days, unfortunately. But they have a very weird style that kind of reminds me of Kimura from like Godanar and Code Geass, where except he's not as expressive, but he takes a lot of the same influences. Like, did you notice that one guy in season 3 kind of looked like the main character from Maken Kaiser?
I was gonna say, there was a random side character who looked like he could have stepped out of a Go Nagai manga.
Yeah, that happens all the time in Dai Mid-Dollar as well. He likes the same Go Nagai style that Kimura likes. He likes tits, obviously. But he's not quite as expressive. He's more like you can actually think these characters might exist somewhere instead of like ridiculous cartoons. Remember Nina's face from season 2 of Code Geass?
I never saw that far.
You know, that one face everyone has seen.
Is it a face you've posted?
It's a face everyone has posted.
I've probably seen it, but I don't know it.
You know, the one where she completely loses her shit and it reaches the point that it doesn't look like her face is making a face anymore. God, how do you guys not remember this? It's like the anime face. Everyone
I never
knows
watched
it.
that far.
I've never watched it at all.
Anyways, the premise of this series is that an idiot pervert named Issei dies and gets like murdered for some reason, and then he becomes a demon and boobs.
And then he becomes the chosen one, and then there are more boobs. And it's all about this holy war between heaven and hell, because that's an original fucking idea that has not been done in a zillion manga. And Bayonetta.
Basically, this is like if Bleach was 90% horny instead of 40% horny and also terrible.
But let me get you the novel idea. What if the devils were the good guys?
That's not a novel idea. Everyone's done that, and the series doesn't even try to pass that off as a novel idea. In fact, it doesn't even suggest any of them are the good guy or bad guy, just like people, and they have to make like a pact not to murder each other.
Yeah, because let's diffuse all the tension over these 3 seasons by setting up this holy war, and then having them all agree and make a pact, and then we have to come up with new villains.
Actually, I kind of appreciated that. It's like, because it's like, everyone realizes that war's bad, so they try to stop war, and it's all the people who want war are just the assholes who think that they're the superior assholes. They're basically demon supremacists are the ones that they're fighting against.
And then the other assholes are kind of not assholes half of the time because...
Because plot.
It's weird because they work for someone whose entire main goal is to bring complete reality annihilation and create a world of absolute silence, and yet they're like helping out the main
characters. Here's the thing, I don't get that, because I totally saw the main villain's goal as trying to kick out her noisy roommate. No, I mean, think about it, because her whole goal is to kick out the dragon of dragons, this giant dragon who's living in the dimensional gap that's supposedly affected by the... There was a whole rule set to this dimensional gap that made the whole main villain's point, like, completely a non-point. Because apparently the whole dimensional gap is affected by the state of your heart, so if she wants to not be next to this guy... Doesn't the fact that her heart is like that mean that they won't ever meet? So why is it that apparently this guy and this guy, existing in literal nothingness, somehow makes them clash? But they should never meet if they don't want to meet? I don't get it. It makes no sense.
Walt, you're thinking way too hard about this. Just move on and look at boobs.
Let's just hold on for a moment and just go season by season, because like every season of the show gets progressively worse in brand new ways.
Yes indeed.
And so let's start with season 1, which is the one I would consider okay. And if people who watched Highschool DxD only watch this season, I would understand why they're fans.
Yeah,
but when you get to like
the most decent.
But when you get to the 3rd season, I'm gonna have to make a fucking argument. But yeah, season 1 is simple. It just focuses on Issei being reborn as a demon for the first time in his life, actually having some sort of significant role in anything, and he's deciding to like do his best, make the most of it. And what I like is there are 2 arcs for the first season, one with Asya, one of the main love interests, and the other with the woman who brought him back to life, Riaz. And his motivation in both arcs isn't anything horny, it's mainly just to do what makes them happy.
I have to protect them because I am a generic light novel hero, and that's what I do.
No, that came later. And it was awful. But like, I liked the last arc of the first season because it was just like, he knows what she wants and he wants to help her get that, and that's all. It's not about protecting her, it's about helping her live the life she wants to live.
I feel like I'm going to play devil's advocate between you and Megan a lot. Because I kind of agree with Megan that this is very just light novel protagonist-y, like, oh, he has to protect them, but at the same time season 1 at least attempted to build a proper reason why he feels that way. It tried. The other seasons I can't claim that. The first season tried.
Yeah, the first season does a good job with the starter villain, that fallen angel who pretends to be a girlfriend so she could get close to him and murder him. And that
but then she dies midway through.
No, hang on. And that kind of fucks him up because Issei is a dumbass, horny teenager, but when he got his first girlfriend, he was actually serious about it despite the obvious horniness.
And the fact that he has 2 horrible, pervy friends who are worse than he is, because there's always at least one of those guys in a harem show to make the protagonist look good.
Yeah,
skipping ahead. They did equal it out. They tried to introduce a girl horrible pervy character, just to be like, hey, it's everyone. It's on both sides.
It's more ripping off of Bleach because they're just trying to rip off the lesbian from Bleach, except they somehow did it worse.
Speaking of rip-offs, that's something that struck me, particularly in this first season. I expect this to use a lot of, like, generic light novel tropes. And it does, over all 3 seasons. But this first season in particular, you can tell that the guy who wrote these original novels was a big fan of a certain magical index.
I've never seen that, and all I know about it is one girl has mind control powers, but like a remote. Another girl is the lesbian, and the other girl has lightning and is the target of the lesbian.
No, you're thinking about a certain magical railgun. That's a completely
it's all the same.
Plot.
It's the same universe, but that's the better version.
And that one guy who's like can apparently defeat every fictional character ever made. So says every single internet troll in existence.
Yep, that's Index. You've got generic guy with he doesn't have a power, but ends up actually having a power who saves a nun with magical powers of her own. And he solves everything by punching.
Where have I heard that before?
This show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what strikes me. This show, at times, it's like light novel loaf. Like, there's a lot of different ideas. Particularly in the 3rd season, I started to get the ideas like, this guy's into fate, too. But it's like all these light novel tropes all mixed up together with boobs as a filler.
Actually, if you probably just removed the boobs and focused on, like, these characters having actual relationships, it would have been good, but they didn't. And I actually like the boob stuff because some of it's so fucking ridiculous, it's incredible.
You were way more tolerant of that stuff than I was. Every time they launched that sort of thing, I was just like...
Remember season 3 when they're in the battle with the cat girl who says Muda Muda, and then he's like, we have a problem, dragon guy. What is it? Which boob should I poke? And the dragon's just like, they're both the same.
to be honest, that filters into why I kind of love season 2 over every other season. Because season 1's just kind of building everything up. Season 3 is kind of just playing off of what it knows. Season 2 is when this whole show goes goddamn, just like cuffs off. Just we know what we want to be. Let's just be it. Like
I would argue it's the opposite.
Really?
Yes, because it gets more ridiculous, but it's also not sure what it wants to do, because they introduce a possible massive conflict, diffuse it, and then introduce a random other conflict without really properly setting it up over the entire season. And half of the season is just for a subplot that goes nowhere and one character who has nothing to do with anything.
But that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to
Can I
season
just
one.
explain the villains of season 1 already?
Well, I was saying we should probably get to the main cast first.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Actually, let's just go ahead and go over the voice cast because it's kind of incredible who's in this show.
So yeah, our lead guy, Hyodo Issei, he's voiced by Eren Yeager, which also means he's voiced by goddamn Kanato from Diabolic Lovers.
Yeah, the voice actor's name Yuki Kaji. He's done a lot of twinks, I've noticed. He was Hope in Final Fantasy 13, Eren in Attack on Titan, Kanato from Diabolic Lovers, Yukini from Noragami, and Speedo Sound Sonic from One Punch Man. A character so ridiculously hot that he's basically created more gay people than just like natural gay birth. And but we should also mention, since we're here, that he had 2 English voice actors. The second one was Strauss Grill, who did like the bad guy in Dragon Ball Xenoverse and Armin in Attack on Titan.
The titular Yuri on Ice.
Byakuya Togami from Dang It Ron Paul. Satan and the Devil is a Part-Timer, and that lazy Subaru dickbag from Diabolic Lovers. Oh, and the main character of Future Diary, and the main character, and I know Walt's gonna love this, Masamune Kun's Revenge.
Hate.
But yes, he was called in to replace him in the 3rd season, and Josh Greeley is a very good voice actor, one of Funimation's best, and he's clearly not comfortable with all like the horny idiot pervert stuff.
But they were in a rush because the first actor, Scott Freeman, was arrested in 2015 for the ownership of child pornography, pled guilty, and is currently serving a 3-year sentence.
Yes. And the thing is, Scott Freeman was something of a known thing. I think his biggest role was England on Natalia.
Actually, now that we bring him up, I remember a story like he ran away with some girl, but when I was looking at
No, that's Ilyich Gyarold, or whatever the fuck his name was. He was an ADV actor.
Oh god, what the fuck is happening in English dubbing right now? This is terrible.
That story is even crazier, but no, in this case, he just literally had child porn. And there's some weird dramatic irony in that the creep lead is voiced by an actual literal creep, but that's not really that funny because child porn.
Yeah, let's see. We should mention that the dragon that lives inside his arm, because light novel, is voiced by Fumihiko Tachi Iki, I hope I pronounced that right, who's done some pretty notable voices, including Odin in Odin Spear, Nightmare in Soul Calibur 3, which is already just like blew my mind. And then my mind went completely off because then I found out he was Kenpachi in Bleach and Gendo Ikari in Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Wow.
Holy fuck. And now you get to hear him complain that everyone's going to remember him as the boob dragon. Yeah, I think we've already explained Issei pretty well. The main heroine is Rias Gramgori, who's basically a demon princess whose entire family is like apparently perverts, and they keep like objectifying her every time a word comes out of their mouth, and it's super creepy and weird.
And surprisingly, for the lead girl in a harem series, she's actually a pretty competent and good leader. Like, she's a good team leader. She binds her family together. She's a good strategist.
Until season 3.
Yeah, until they turn into a cleany jealous girl.
Yeah, her voice actress was Yoko Ikasa, who, I was surprised by this one, voiced the lead character in Lollipop Chainsaw, was the detective girl from Dang It Ron Paul. I'll never get tired of that. Mio from K-On!, so that already explains so much. Yeah, she was Mio from K-On!.
Oh, God.
Joan of Arc from Nobunaga the Fool. Galco's sister from Please Tell Me Galco-chan, which is... I know. Maria from Symphogear, Al from Soundyphonium. Oh, and the one that caught my attention, Hana from Quasar of Stigmata.
Oh God, you've seen that?
I've read the manga, and I normally wouldn't bring this up, except she played Hana, who's probably a character I can't believe exists. If you don't know what this show is, the show and the manga, then you probably only know two things about them. One is the fact that, like, superpowers from breast milk because
fetish.
But the other thing you may have noticed is that there's, like, a lowly character in that series who basically dominates every woman in a 5-mile radius of her in the series.
Oh God.
And Hana is the first character to get dommed by her.
Oh God.
And it's hilarious because she's introduced as this terrible bully character who's just completely awful and ruins the lives of the two main characters. And then she meets Kaja, the lowly character I mentioned. And pretty much everything she does in the series from then on is just be subjected to either being her chair or some sort of exhibitionist act she hopes nobody sees. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious because she's so terrible, and now this is what she's like now. It's the most fucked up thing, but the best part is she kind of likes it and she won't admit it. It's just the weirdest fucking character.
And in English, she's actually voiced by one of the other few notable people in the voice cast, and who's also the ADR writer, Jamie Marchi. And she's a bit of a controversial figure unto herself because she's known for taking a very liberal approach to translation. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. She tends to do a lot of these fan servicey shows. But that liberalness tends to come with a lot of slangy, trying to be hip with the kids, sort of jokes. And she went fucking overboard in this dub.
I've only seen one episode of the dub. It was like years ago, and all I could remember was, this is terrible.
I alternated between dub and sub because why not? Also because I actually kind of found both voice tracks annoying in different ways.
Yeah, that's fair. I marked down some of the voices she's done. She's been Natsuko from Desert Punk. She's the voice of Mari from Love Life Sunshine, and she's great in that role. I've listened to some of it, and she's just, like, spot on in the weirdest way. She was Panty from Panty and Stocking. I was surprised by this. She did the dub voice for Lulu and Yurikuma Arashi. Oh, and let's see. Probably the most significant one is she is the mastermind from the Dang It Ron Paul anime. Which is great.
This 3 times now. What is the Dang It Ron Paul anime?
Danganronpa.
I get it.
She played the mastermind, and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to spoil it for people who are, like, really far behind on their Dang It Ron Pauls. But she got the best role in that series by a mile, and I hope she did well in it. Let's see. Also on the cast, we have the next major character is Rias's queen, since all her servants are based off chess pieces. Akino Himejima, I hope I pronounced that right. I keep saying that. She's voiced by Shizuka Ito, who did Sakurako and Beautiful Bones, which is a very good mystery show. I highly recommend it. She did Hilda and Beelzebub, which is great. And she's now the voice of Sailor Venus in the Sailor Moon Crystal series. While the English voice is Terry Rogers, who was recast with Kelly Angel in Season 3, and there's nothing of that much note on their resumes. And which is fitting because this is probably the most wasted character in the whole series who actually gets stuff to do.
Yeah, initially she's just the token masochist, but she's
sadomasochist.
Sadomasochist, there.
Because she's mostly a sadist in Season 1. Remember when she, like, murdered 3 people and licked her lips?
But then she gets a tragic backstory because most of the supporting cast ends up getting a tragic backstory. And she's sad because her fallen angel daddy left. And her mama died.
The thing is, the story is actually fairly understandable once you hear it, but they don't build it up enough. And then they solve it in the dumbest way possible so Issei can get the power of boof telepathy.
Yeah, he's basically like, well, maybe you should just, like...
The worst
Just
part
be nice
is
to your
he's not
dad,
even.
and it'll all work out, and she does, and it's fine because fuck it.
She's also like half fallen angel, but who cares? Next on the list is Koniko Tojo, the token cat girl of the series, except she isn't a cat girl until season 3.
And I felt
sad
like
backstory.
that twist was, in one way, so obvious that I kind of want to smack myself for not picking it up, and yet it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
I don't think it was obvious at all, because I feel like there was nothing in the previous 2 seasons to allude to it.
Her
Except
name
for the
is
fact it's
Koneko. She has
had
a cat hairpin. Her familiar is a cat. It's obvious.
Maybe I just didn't pick up on it then. I guess in a series where literally every mythological idea was possible, the obvious one just went over my head.
Anyway, she was voiced by Anya Takatatsu, who does the voice of Jessica Albert in the Dragon Quest series. Probably the most famous Dragon Quest character now because she's the one with the boobs. But she is a great character in her own right. She was Azusa in K-On!, which explains so much about this casting. She was Labris in Persona 4 Arena, and Yufan in Lance and Mask. And I don't remember which one Yufan was.
Yufan. Wasn't that the girl who would basically adopted the little girl as her mom?
I don't know. I like that entire show except the cross-dressing kid is like gone out one year now the other. It was so
because
forgettable.
Yuyan was the shitty little boy you loved.
Oh yeah, Yuyan is my child.
Okay,
you will
yeah.
not make fun of him.
Yeah, she was like the stoic one who kind of adopted the leads as her parents, and it was weird.
Meanwhile, the English voice actors Jade Saxton, who did Eve Genoard in Bakano, Ruruka and Dang It Ron Paul 3 is anime, Mira in Dimension W, Haruna in Is This a Zombie, which is a surprisingly good show, Akatsuki from Log Horizon, Lisa and Terror in Resonance, Momoka and Valkyrie Drive Mermaid, just like a surprisingly big list there.
She was one of the better ones in that dub. She does flat snark really well.
Yeah, one thing I noticed is that Koniko ends up being one of the most wasted characters too, because she starts out by punching Issei, which is good, but then by the end of season 3, she's regularly sleeping on his crotch.
Yeah, she starts out
because
being
cats!
the cynical one of the group who's just like, you dumb pervert. Which is part of the reason I liked her, because she's the only one, calling things as they are. But then her cat girl past is revealed, and then she kind of alternates between the snark and just, yeah, I'm gonna lie in your lap.
One thing I did appreciate about her being a cat girl is that occasionally at the end of a scene, she'll just go, yeah. I'm fine with that. Then there's Asia Argento, probably... Hang on. Probably the most significant character we've mentioned so far besides Rias, because she's the one Issei's most obsessed with. She's a nun he saves from a group of fallen angels in season 1. And she's basically the Orihime of the group, except she only gets healing powers, no shield or like attack of her own. So she's effectively worthless and exists only to be a damsel.
Yeah, she's a freaking load for the entire series length. But I gotta go back to that name, because it took me like 2 or 3 times, like, did I hear that right? Her name is Asia Argento, as in the real-world actress daughter of horror director Dario Argento, who is only known for appearing in her dad's films and taking off her top.
Wait, is that real?
Yes!
I got stuck on the fact that her name was essentially Asia. Like...
Oh, you're gonna love this. Her voice actor Suzumi Asakura, the only notable other role I could find she did was Lady J in Valkyrie Drive Mermaid, who is like the exact opposite of this character. Like, Lady J was one of those two, like, really overt lesbians who was just constantly flaunted how gay they were and was like could turn into a bike.
And her Seiyu was one of the reasons I couldn't stand the sub. The other was actually Issei's voice actor whenever he'd go too far into the boobies mode. But, oh my god, Asuya Seiyu is just so goddamn squeaky. You could just... She sounded like a Muppet at points. Just beep, 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 beep.
It's weird because, as I mentioned, Lady J is the exact opposite and sounds absolutely nothing like this. It's just like, really?
Listening to her made me think of, you know when Game Grumps play visual novels and they make Ross do girl voices?
Yeah.
She reminded me of that. So at any point, I kept expecting her to say, I'm going to kick your ass.
And the English voice actress was Chol Daniels, and I didn't see anything of note. Then there's Yuta Kiba, the knight in the group, who's voiced by Kenji Nojima, who also doesn't have a very impressive list because I actually only wrote down 2 names. One was Akira from Lance and Mask. I don't remember which one it was. And the other voice, the one I was surprised by was Fox McCloud.
But?
Yeah. And the English voice actor is Sino Cotter, who apparently hasn't done much either. And the only note I listed for Kiba is, why is he here?
Initially, I didn't mind him because he's a very good, competent fighter. But then season 2 comes along, and then he's just like, angst.
And then he's not like that after his arc ends in 6 episodes, and then he does nothing until way late in season 3, where that one guy named Freed, who talks in crazy English all the time, comes back and gets one-shotted by him, and then he does nothing again. Hey, Freed was great. I mean,
Freed was
Freed
great.
was annoying.
I mean,
no,
sure,
Freed was wonderful.
Okay,
Freed...
I mean, hang on. I will admit that he was the only 2 villains in the show who did threaten rape at one point, but his actor did not give a shit at all and just went bananas with him.
Yeah, Freed himself is a horrible, horrible hypocrite of a person, but his voice actor put so much energy into his voice. Every line, you can tell the man was just throwing his arms about, smiling while he was doing it. He was into it, and I loved that. Freed brought life to this show.
It's hilarious
as he
because
chomped on the scenery.
Yeah, it's hilarious because Freed is like the only role like that guy has ever done, as far as I can tell. So I don't know where he got that from.
He clearly has been holding it back.
Outside those main 3, we have 3 few important characters who appear in seasons 2 and 3. In season 2, we get Zenobia, my
the
wife.
most pointless girl.
No,
you
take that
yes.
Pointless.
back. I will
I'm sorry.
fight you.
Zenobia is the most pointless character. Honestly,
let me make an important argument. You noticed how every single character at a certain point just starts being that annoying harem girl?
Yes.
Yeah.
Zenobia's take on that is, hey, let's fuck. I want a dragon baby. Or, hey, I got these condoms. And she's in a classroom like, let's go fuck.
Oh,
and
yes,
she
her
does it
entire faith in God is destroyed when she finds out he said... Which, by the way, I had a problem with the subs on that. I don't know how it worked in the dub, but after they find out God's dead, everyone refers to God not existing, and I feel like there's a key difference between dead and non-existence that we're missing here. But that's besides the point. Her whole thing is that, oh, God's dead, I have no purpose. I guess I'll just turn to Satan and dedicate my life to having a kid now. She's like the character equivalent of that Nicolas Cage movie Left Behind.
No, not just having a kid, having a dragon's kid, and she's so disinterested in this goal that it's kind of incredible. Like, the only time she shows genuine emotion throughout the series is when everyone thought that Asuya died, and then she was brought back, and while Issei's about to have a moment with her, she suddenly shoots the fuck out of nowhere, knocks him away, and just loses her shit and starts crying all over.
See, I'll argue that Zenobia was not bad because she was a little more distant from the whole harem thing, other than her occasional bounce of, we need to make babies.
Remember, one of my favorite things is one of the few scenes she gets where she shares the bed with him. She just, like, somehow completely turns around on the bed, is, like, kicking him in her sleep, and at one point just fucking breaks his neck with her leg lock. And she's just sleeping peacefully the entire time. Like,
okay, in defense of that, I have fallen asleep with my head on one end of the bed and woken up like with my entire body turned around and have no memory of it. So that is a perfectly viable sleeping habit.
Oh, I also like when she does actually have some sort of... She's one of the few characters who genuinely confesses to Issei and does it in a way like a human might actually do, instead of like trying to work through their fucking daddy issues or be passive aggressive with a bunch of other girls. Like, everyone else in the cast is constantly worried about the other girl getting Issei, and he just comes in, they talk for a while, and then she just sneaks a kiss, and that's it. She's like... It's weird because she's almost like a cross between being the only actual person in this show and being some sort of alien robot who does not understand the ways of sex.
Yes.
Oh, you know, she's simple. She was raised by the church. She doesn't get these things.
It's great because she's not a good character on paper, but she's good because she's a weird comedic relief contrast to everyone else, because she just does not give a shit about all this harem bullshit, but she also isn't angry about it. She's just Zenobia. Oh, and she has 2 girlfriends. Fight me. Yeah, she was the reason I was able to make it through season 3. Season 3 was so bad, and she was like the only reason I could get through it. Oh, and that in Azazel, the king of all fallen angels.
Yes.
Who's basically like Urahara from Bleach, and the same way that he tries to push the characters, puts them in dangerous situations, constantly doing schemes behind their back. But he's more entertaining to me, partly because I was watching the sub and his voice actor is Rikiya Koyama, who's done like voices like Bosch in Final Fantasy XII. Frank Weston, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I was surprised by that. He was Stark in Bleach, Kiritsugu in the Fate series, and Wolverine. He was Wolverine.
He was also really entertaining in the dub, too. They cast him well for that.
Yeah, there
was a nice hint of snark in all his dialogue.
Yeah, they got Phil Farlands, the voice of Nappa from Dragon Ball Z, and Klaus von Reinhardt's from Blood Blockade Battlefront. You always have to say it like you're reading it in all capital letters. That's how it works. But yeah, his voice actor is very talented and has this deep, commanding voice, but he's saying relatively normal things, but some of the stuff he does goes so far against that it becomes amusing.
Yes.
I keep thinking back to that one scene where they're all planning to go on some trip to the underworld. It's like, I'm coming too. And then everyone turns around and exclaims, Azazel?
He also has a rocket arm. I feel that's so important, because there was one scene, it's like showing off, and then there's this one scene where he's like on comm and someone tries to attack him and he just shoots his rocket arm at him, and you just see the model
doesn't. I don't
shrink.
think he even does that. I think he just shoots a beam from his arm stump.
No. The whole arm leaves his hand. I remember this because one of my favorite one-shots came from the Hayate the Combat Butler guy, and it was just about a guy whose grandfather wished to have a rocket arm, but he paid the last of his life to get it. So it went to his grandson, and he just could shoot his arm like a rocket. And that made me laugh so much, because I realized how much better the show would be if it was written by the Hayate the Combat Butler guy.
Oh, remember how Azazel keeps realizing that he has to use boobs to motivate Issei, but he's actually amazed that it works sometimes, like at the end of season 2, where he explains that the White Dragon's power is dividing, so he could theoretically make boobs smaller. And then Issei just completely loses his shit, and Azazel's like, oh my god, that worked. And he just starts laughing.
Well, of course,
I feel like that's a big part of the show we have not fully discussed yet.
Hang on,
and that's how the power of the main character, his whole power is tied to his like emotional state, and even though he's like supposed to be this prophesized like dragon of like war or something, he gets all his major power boosts from the idea of boobs.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, and let's point out that he also ruins another character named Gasper Bloody, the Otaka Noko of the cast. Gasper.
Yes, I was about to say, you can't forget the good boy.
Yeah, Gasper appears in season 2, and I like him a lot because they actually managed not to be gross or transphobic with him outside a moment with Issei and that one guy who like works with the president. Like, he's not a girl.
Yeah.
And outside that, he's just like the excuse they give him for why he's wearing girls' clothes is he just thinks they're cute. That's it.
Yep.
Good. Finally. How the fuck is High School DxD the show that's good at this? What the fuck?
And when you mentioned this character before, I was afraid, like, oh god,
good.
the dub's gonna make this awful because Jamie Marchi is kind of a bad history with LGBT stuff. Thank you, Dragon Maid. But they didn't.
How bad did they make it?
They didn't. I mean, other than that one moment you mentioned when they introduced Gaspar. They don't. It's amazing.
Finally, some self-control.
You say good, but then I remember in season 1, there was the big muscular guy that wanted to be a magical girl.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
It's not even like a major character. That was just like a one-off joke, but it was still like, that's tasteless.
Ha, big buff guy thinks he's a magical girl.
Yeah, I remember that now. I actually managed to block it from my memory.
You can never block anything from your memory with me.
Gasper is great and has like ridiculously OP powers of like time stopping, though occasionally the show will have to write out a way so we can't use it. He's voiced by Ayane Sakura in the Japanese dub, who's voiced a lot of characters in Kantai Collection, did Miyabi, and Who is Emoto. and Megan's gonna love this, was Akane in Vivid Red Operation.
Akane, oh god, the Moe baby? Oh god. Oh god.
The English voice actor was Alison Victorin, who is... I found this most amusing. Not only was she Detective Conan and Geronimo from Nobunaga and QT from Space Dandy, she was also a character listed as the principal from Walker, Texas Ranger. Fantastic.
Now I explain why Gasper sounded familiar. QT, of course.
There's also 2 other characters, but I don't even remember the name of the character who ends up becoming an angel because she's so pointless.
Irina, who is Xenovia's bestie, her former
and
partner.
like an old childhood friend of Issei, and that goes nowhere, and she does nothing except for that one scene where she catches like the part in the shed where Xenovia basically convinced Asya to start a 3-way with Issei, and then she walks in on them, but instead of like losing her shit completely that they're having sex, she's like, go do that on a bed where it's clean.
Where even Issei's like, wait, that's your problem with this?
And then there's the girl who I would argue is probably the most pointless in the entire harem, Rosweisa, who is a Valkyrie.
Oh, you mean the Valkyrie who wasn't even part of the harem or the family until like the last 5 minutes of season 3?
Yep. She gets left behind by Odin, and her 2 distinguishing characteristics is that she cries all the time, and she's a token Christmas cake. The one who's like, oh, I'm so old, I'll never get married. Wah!
Oh, you want to know something fun? Her voice actress, Aya Kakuma, voiced Love Pawn in The Lost Village. If you've never seen The Lost Village, and you don't know who Love Pawn is, I'm so sorry. You need to watch The Lost Village. Love Pawn is amazing. Almost all of her dialogue is just her screaming to execute someone. Execute! She was also one of the main characters from the Wicos anime, the first one, and Lala from Monster Musume. And the English voice actress is Mallory Rodock, and she's also apparently done nothing that I can notice.
Yeah,
So.
I think that covers all the major cast members, so we can get back to the plot.
Oh, I did write one more important note.
Oh?
Looks good in a suit.
Yes.
I can't argue that.
She's basically just Saber, except without like confidence or a gender complex. So so in other words, she's boring. So yeah. But yeah, let's just go ahead and explain the basic plot of season 1 and go into depth on that, because I think this is like the one genuinely good, well, goodish
Yeah.
season.
And what distinguished that for me is the fact that once Issei becomes a demon, he just blends into the team right away. Like, you expect him to drag it out with drama, like, oh, he's the outcast, nobody trusts him, they all have to earn their belief in him, and no, he slides in pretty well, and everybody's mostly, aside from Kaneko, is pretty confident in his abilities, and they work well as a team.
Yeah, I like the first arc because it's when they give Asuya a sad backstory, it actually works because there's a genuine connection between her and Issei. So while Asuya ends up becoming useless later, this is a good starting point for a character they completely fucking waste. And his early conflict with this fallen angel who tricks him, breaks his heart, and basically killed him for nothing, ends up in a very satisfying ending where his powers just go ballistic, and it's like constantly saying boost all the time, and he just kicks her ass with one punch. And when she tries to save herself doing that bitch in cheap clothing act, he's like, nope, and just fucking murders her. That was satisfying. That was
I do
very
wish
satisfying.
it didn't involve, like, let's just drag Asuya around and make her damsel and rip her top off, and she just lies there dead on the floor with her tit hanging out.
Yeah. This keeps happening to her, and it's never entertaining or good in any way. God, Asuya is so frustrating because she's like probably the worst handled character, but she's also the one that's Novia is the most openly gay with, so I have to like her by default.
But then the second half of season 1 happens, and it's basically out of nowhere, Rias gets this horrible, smug, power-grabbing fiance who is voiced by motherfucking Dio.
I should point out it's not out of nowhere. I like season 1 because it actually builds up to this stuff. It has like little subtle hints, and you go back, you can kind of see that they're pointing towards something. Unlike season 2 and 3, which have so much shit happening that it doesn't have the time for foreshadowing. So like season 1's focused on setting up the dynamic, getting you into the characters' heads, even like giving a few characters some death here and there, and then they fuck it up later.
Yes. So, Rias ends up getting dragged to the underworld for an engagement party, and all her friends have to go down there and save him. And of course, Issei ends up being the big damn hero because, the magical, face dragon that lives in his arm, because of course.
Well, there's also, I think you're skipping over like one part, and that's the raiding game that happens beforehand, which I think was handled really well.
Yeah,
like, fan service aside,
it
was a very
that's
well
how
set out
she
like little
gets captured
tournament
in
arc.
The first place.
Yeah,
It doesn't get dragged out. The fights are still really well. It basically highlights Hisei's big power that was the whole point of the training arc, which is probably the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a battle series, but
it's dress break, which if he touches them, it causes their clothes to burst off.
And everyone on his team has to apologize to the other team for him.
Yeah.
At one point, Hiba just stops fine. He's like, I have to apologize for him. But goddamn it if it doesn't work.
They have to bring it up in season 3 that the bad guy has to make his team immune to embarrassment to counter that. So
and it was like, I did it with a spell. It's like, what? You couldn't just have them train naked or just pick women who are not embarrassed by nudity? But whatever.
This series was written by someone so painfully heterosexual that it's almost depressing.
I'm also convinced it is someone who has never touched a tit in their life because of the way they talk about it. Like, oh, just poke it, not flick the nipple or anything. Just poke it like it's a doorbell. Oh, it'll make her so horny. Which no, as the owner of a pair of boobs, no. Not to mention the sound effects, because there's a lot of tit jiggling. Surprise! Like there's like constant tit shots all the time. The thing is, when they jiggle, they make this weird, moist, slushy sound, and it
always sounded wet.
Yeah, and it's once you notice it, it's so distracting because it's like, ugh, you make them sound unappealing.
Pretty much my only note I had on this was I wrote down for episode 1 none of these women wear bras. And then episode 2 and on, like, I think I stopped somewhere halfway through season 1 because it was just getting repetitive. Season 2 and on, I just wrote, that bra is bullshit.
Oh, yeah, they have bras, because we see them changing in and out of them. They just don't do anything, because it's just blah, 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 blah.
No, you know what it's like? It's like Mystique. It's like Mystique, like, created a bra, like, on her body. So it's a part of her body, and so it acts like a part of her body, but it's not actually there. That's what it's like.
Oh, we forgot about the most important part of season 1. Asya eats a burger.
That was adorable.
I had to stop what I was doing when I was watching that episode when I got to that scene and just tell everyone on Twitter, look, this anime girl is eating a burger. And the only other times
he can put in his panel.
The only other times I stopped this show to post something on Twitter was when it was related to Suzumiya just being in frame, or Issei doing something so incredibly stupidly horny that I had to talk about it.
But yes, coming back.
Also, I just want to point this out, but season 1 also had perhaps one of the most pointless episodes, in that it was an episode about getting a familiar, and I think the only thing it did in its entire 24-minute runtime was it established that the rating game was a thing. But other than that, I don't think it's had any bearing on the plot.
Yeah, that Thunder Dragon that Asya gets just sort
that
of...
apparently is supposed to attack any guy that goes for Asya.
It never appears again, except
yes!
except like the intros. What was it?
No, I remember. The next time it appears is when they're training Gasper, because I noticed it. I noticed it floating above her head, and I'm like, whoa, that's right, that was a thing!
Heck, most everybody's familiars don't really show up at all. Like, they use them maybe once or twice over the length of the entire series.
No, they establish it in the episode, and then the rating game, we see, like, Akinos being used for, like, illusions, and that was, like, a great little setup, too. It's like, oh, so they have, like, battle purposes, and it's like, Risei uses hers to hand out contract flyers, and, like, there was, like, one scene where, like, she used it as a scouter, and it's like, okay, so, like, various different ones, and so you think, like, oh, they're gonna have a lot of purposes. I don't think they mentioned familiars once in Season 3.
Nope.
Or once in Season 2.
No, Season 2. Season 2, they used it to track down Arena in the forest. That was
Season 3.
No, that was Season 2.
No, they did it. Season 2.
No, they also did it in Season 3 to track down Koneko.
Oh, that was it. That's what I was thinking. Anyway.
No, that wasn't a
And since we brought,
right, it wasn't familiar. Jesus.
Since we brought up that episode, we should also bring up the Student Council, because they're kind of great.
And they do appear fairly frequently. So yes, in true light novel fashion, there is an overpowered student council, most of which we don't really see aside from the student council president, who is another heiress to a notable demon family.
Yeah, she's from the Leviathan family. Rias is from, like, a family connected to, like...
Her brother is basically Satan at the moment.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, like, Lucifer or Beelzebub, but I know those last names are used for other characters that aren't in her bloodline, so it kind of throws me off.
So, he's in charge of hell.
Yeah.
And
the president and the president of the school is a magical girl. Her big sister is, even though she also helps rule hell. I mean,
and she hates
that's obvious.
And she hates being around her big sister because she's the exact opposite. Like, the president, when she's imagined by basically her Issei, the pervert guy she has around, he imagines her as a fucking dominatrix with a butterfly mask and an evil smile. It's like, yeah. And it's pretty accurate to her personality throughout the whole show, because she's always super serious and not taking any shit, until her big sister comes by and suddenly she just is unable to control her cool because her big sister just keeps invading her personal space so constantly. And she is just the most obnoxious cosplaying character I've ever met. Mm-hmm. She never stops, ever. Oh, remember? Oh, yeah, that we're going to get to a special song that happens at the end of the season, but I want to point out that she was involved in its planning. along with Rias's big brother and Azazel.
Oh boy.
Seriously, I really feel like the kings of hell, the kings and queens of hell, the governor general, which I think that is the most, that sounds like the most bullshit made-up title ever, of fallen angels, and everyone is officially just taking the piss out of Issei. And I really hope it just continues that way.
Can you blame them? Anyway,
No.
back to the plot. So Rias.
Oh yeah, that villain is named Riser Phoenix, which is the most light novel name I've ever heard. That also happens to be an okay name. It's so stupid, but I'll let it pass.
They waste fucking deal on him. Anyway.
I actually like him because he's such an openly big piece of shit.
So,
like
yeah.
he's a womanizing asshole who's emotionally abusive, who can't take no for an answer. Though I will give him credit for not having him make a rape threat. It's a light novel show. The fact that there's only 2 rape threats in this show is just mind-boggling.
And the thing is because he's, as his name suggests, he has fire and immortality powers. Nobody can beat him until Issei finally powers up, and his magical dragon MacGuffin in his arm becomes like this overpowered.
Okay,
set
no,
of
to be
armor.
fair, they actually at least they do a good job, I think, explaining how they beat him, because I kind of like that since there's a devil, no one uses holy objects, but he's a dragon, so fuck that noise, and he just throws holy water on him. I think that was fantastic.
Yeah,
I think that was the best idea.
Yeah, they established that the dragon arm, since at that point he's given his arm to the dragon, so it's not a human or a devil arm anymore, it's a dragon arm. That part of his body can actually touch holy objects while normal demons can't, so we can actually use that against them.
I think that was I think, like, they clearly built up to that, and I think they also, like, built up to that with Asuya being from the church, and just her whole, like, she still prays all the time, even though it hurts her.
I like that he technically doesn't really overpower the villain, because he can't, even though he gets this big power boost, he only uses it for 10 seconds and can't finish the job with it. So he comes up with a plan B with the holy water, and that's actually pretty clever. It's something no demon would ever think of, so it works in this context. It's actually earned, unlike later victories in later seasons, where he just goes boost, 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 and then punches things.
Yep.
I think, like, the whole explanation, too, is that he can't harm him physically, but holy objects do mental damage along with physical damage, and immortality doesn't do jack shit for mental damage.
Yeah, if you do enough mental damage, someone's not going to be able to think hard enough to even function.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
yeah, season 1 had, like, the actual smartest fight in this entire series.
And then it's all downhill from there.
Because then we get into season 2, where we
hang on.
crank the harem nonsense to 11.
I just remembered one important thing from season 1. That one episode with the girl who's in the samurai armor wants to get with the guy who's in the knight armor.
Oh my god, that's right!
Because part of his duties as a
that was
demon
adorable!
is that Issei has to go around and make pacts with people and satisfy their wishes. And one of them is basically a weeaboo, who is in samurai armor all the time, who's in love with a Japanese guy who is in Western medieval armor all the time.
And I like how, after sending the confession by arrow, when we see the guy for the first time, the arrow's still sticking out of his helmet.
And he's like, you have really good aim.
I loved that. Are you joking?
That episode even serves double as character development, because we get a better idea of who Riaz is, because so far through the season, we've been disconnected from her, like seeing her from Issei's point of view as this, like, some amazing figure he can't really get near. But this is the first episode where we get an idea of what she's like as a person, as she sees she genuinely wants to help these people even if she doesn't get a contract. It's like, that's a nice little touch. And there are never any nice little touches like that throughout the rest of the series.
And it
after
starts
season
off
1.
Bad right from the bat in season 2, because it's like, oh, Asuya and Rias need to move in with you, Issei. So now we got harem hijinks, and they both try to, like, sleep in his bed. And you think after a while, just because Rias keeps showing up, because to heal him, she has to lie naked next to him, that he'd eventually get over his boobs mentality and just be like, oh, boobs.
Yeah, he's...
Nope, never.
And have you noticed that the scene with those two is always the same?
Yes.
Riaz goes in, and then Asya just loses her shit and goes in too, and then he has a nosebleed or something.
Yeah, she goes on like, oh, you can use me too. It's okay. I just don't want to lose. And he's like, duh.
It's so annoying for those first 6 episodes because at that point, probably the darkest arc in the series is going on, involving like human experimentation, finding out that one of the Kiba was like the only survivor of a horrible human experiment program to create demon hunting swords. Freed comes back and he's actually genuinely effective as a villain, even though he's so fucking ridiculous, because he can actually use these swords they started building up. There are 2 people from the church who enter the cast, and they actually start off a bit threatening, and you're wondering what their deal is until Synovia finally becomes Synovia and saves all of season 3 for me.
And then it all leads up to this, like, random fallen angels like, mwahaha, I'm gonna fuck shit up because I can. I don't want peace.
It's annoying because the fallen angel actually has a good motivation as you learn more about him, but it's told in the clunkiest way possible, and it's at the cost of the much more interesting story of this man who committed these horrible atrocities in the name of God.
And in the trend of great Seiyu being wasted on these throwaway villains, his voice actor is Kirito, or Soma from Food Wars if you prefer. Like, he's a big name actor.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because, like, if they just left out that fallen angel guy and saved him for later, like, if they got rid of that random lady to introduce the old Satan faction for season 3 at the end of season 2 and replaced it with him, that might have worked, and it would have made far more sense why Vati, the white dragon guy, would get involved in that conflict and why he's not siding with him. But they don't do that. And they end up
this is also the point where they set up like, oh, there's some magical mythological bullshit where the Issei's dragon arm has an opposite with this silver-haired guy named Vali, who they don't really do all that much other than he's like, we're gonna fight eventually. He's
basically just Sasuke Uchiha without the sad backstory. He's the literal fucking half-son of, like, Lucifer or something.
Yeah.
And he's also, like, the owner of the white dragon power. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to make him the exact opposite of Issei. He even has the exact opposite powers. Issei has this boost power where as long as his body or a soul can take it, he can keep powering up his... he can keep becoming more powerful exponentially and absorb things into him. But the White Dragon's power is division, where he basically weakens people and breaks things apart. The problem is he's still treated as super powerful when he should be someone like, let's say, that Madaka Box character. Oh God, how do I forget his name? He's the best character in the series. Kumagawa, yes. Kumagawa's power in that series was he suffered from serious, like, he didn't believe in himself at all. He had a lot of self-doubt, and his big motivation was to prove he could be better than, like, the traditional heroes by being the worst sort of person he could be. And so his powers reflected that, where he could, like, make someone as bad as he is, or, like, make something just not exist.
Oh, you're talking about his power Bookmaker.
Yeah, Bookmaker and all fiction. And so if they did something like that with Vali, he'd be interesting. But no, he's apparently still super powerful, even with his main power being making people not powerful, which makes no fucking sense.
Speaking of not making fucking sense, then we get to, like, I guess we call it the last arc of season 2, where it's like, so heaven and hell and the fallen angels are trying to set up this peace, what am I trying to say? Pact or whatever.
Peace summit.
Yeah.
Yeah, peace summit.
And then out of fucking nowhere, these, like, random terrorist magicians come along and kidnap Gaspar because they want to fuck shit up because they can. And then everybody beats them, mostly Issei.
And there's also that one girl who's also from the Leviathan clan who should have been a recurring character because she had a great character design, but then they just wasted her. And she also didn't really have a point in the context of Season 2. And she makes even less sense when you hit Season 3 because Folly fights against her even though he's part of what Season 2 introduces as the Chaos Brigade, which seems to have the same goals partly as this old Satan faction we learn about later, except they never really considered them ally or even seem to do anything with them. But somehow they're also working together in Season 3 for some stuff. It's and like when you finally find out what Valley's actual goal is to go kill that one dragon in the void, it has nothing to do with starting a gigantic war. What the fuck? And why was Loki there? Why would anyone...
Oh, God,
why?
Yeah. So, Season 2 is... In some ways, it really does feel pointless. It is the most forgettable of the seasons.
No, Season 2 is not the most forgettable. It includes a
Season
scene...
3 is the most forgettable.
Yeah, Season 2 includes a scene where after everyone discovers the horrifying truth that God is dead...
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's like, oh, all the leaders of heaven and hell, yeah, they died in the original Holy War.
And then Issei keeps fighting anyways, and then the president makes a promise that he can do anything he wants to her if he does good. And he's like, does that mean I can suck your boob? And she's like, yeah. And then he just goes fucking Super Saiyan and beats the shit out of this fallen angel guy. He's like, how could one man get this much power from the thought of sucking a breast?
Boost, 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 boost. It's the stupidest shit.
God.
That's literally how you know the character's powering up, is the voice of the dragon just shouts, boost! And depending on the frequency you hear boost, that's how much stronger he's getting.
I'm gonna defend that a little because they do a really cool thing in Season 3 where Issei is completely losing his shit after thinking Asya is dead, or that one guy who threatens Asya, and as it keeps cutting to this guy making his evil monologue, the thing just keeps going boost, 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 boost at super fast speeds. And you're starting to realize that just like the most epic one-sided beatdown is about to happen on this fucker. And it's so satisfying.
I can't defend the boost, dude. It's like... It's the biggest tension killer when, like, the whole power-up mechanic of your main character is a voice just shouting boost over and over again. Because eventually it starts out like, it's the first few times it's like, okay. And as it just keeps going, it just gets more and more annoying. It's like, alright, we get it. It's like literally anything else. Like he's got a green light that lights up. Just light that up more and more. Like, it's so... It's so ridiculous. It really is, like, the most ridiculous... My Hero Academia...
My Hero Academia?
makes fun of... Yeah, I'm sorry. My Hero Academia...
I think you mean Boku
makes
no
fun
Pico.
of this... Shut up.
You have to use it by the proper Japanese name.
I'll use the name of the volumes I buy. How about that? So, My Hero Academia has this moment where everyone's, like, picking out, or trying to, like, make special attacks and name their attacks. And there's, like, the one character who cloaks himself in his own shadow, makes up this attack, and it comes up with this whole summary of a name. And pretty much and the teachers are like, good attack, but just shorten the name. It does not roll off the tongue. And it's like, and I, like, think about that in every little, like, light novel shonen thing. It's like... Yeah, no, this doesn't roll off the tongue at all.
Yeah, this show has a big problem with that. I don't even remember most of, like, the special power names because they get so stupid after a while.
I agree that the boost thing probably, it applies to that in an abstract way, but I still think the point comes across very well, is that don't burden your entire audience with that.
Season 2, while we're still there, I think Season 1's the best. Season 2 it's getting into bad territory, but it doesn't quite reach there because of those, like, the third quarter episodes where they introduce Gasper and have a lot of comedy, and then season 3 is garbage.
Yeah, and there's
season 2 is probably the worst, for the reason I kind of respect it the most, in that season 1 has these moments like we were just talking about with the samurai and the medieval knight falling in love, that are these character developing moments, and season 2 basically has not a single one of those, and every one of them is replaced with Issei with a girl getting sexy on.
No, he doesn't.
Trying to get sexy on.
He doesn't even try. He has no idea what the fuck he's doing every single fucking time.
And the thing is, they are basically throwing themselves at him. They're saying, no, it's okay. You can touch my boobs. You can have sex with me. It's okay. And he's like,
it's so annoying because, I mean, it's amusing in, like, the first season because he's a dumbass virgin who doesn't know anything. But by season 3, when everyone's, like, sleeping on his bed all at once, for fuck's sakes.
To borrow some more Game Grumps quotes, what does she have to do? She wants to put the weenie in her bikini.
Oh, God.
And then season 3 happens, which apparently actually has a lot of issues going on behind the scenes because it's adapting one more light novel than usual, and the original author was trying to make it line up with some sort of spin-off light novel series for this, which is not completely in continuity.
Was it a manga that was like, I think they did a spin-off manga about Koniko and Asya doing something, but I didn't read much into what it was about.
Yeah, I only know about this because of TV tropes, but so the author was trying to make the two continuities line up, and it didn't work out well, and people who like this series for some god-awful reason got mad about it. And really, it's like that's just missing the forest for the trees, because
I would understand why they would get mad about it, because as messy as season 1 and 2 are, there's a lot of genuine fun you can have with them. Season 3 is such a fucking mess. Not only does it not know what it wants to be, it's constantly being so many things that don't fit together that they're, like, not even some of the more ridiculous, like, boob telepathy is as amusing as it should be, because there's just so much other shit you gotta put up with that doesn't work.
Yeah, season 3 is where it just completely submits to the whole light novel nonsense, and it gets a lot more serious and a lot more confusing and just throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks.
And also dumber somehow.
One thing I don't... Go, you go ahead.
Yeah, it also gets dumber because there's more harem shenanigans, and the only time they ever work is the one time Synovia... The 2 times Synovia's involved, one where she accidentally breaks his neck, and the other time where she's like, hey, let's have a 3-way.
I also noticed with season 3, so generally with season 1 and 2, there were about 2 arcs a season, 6 episodes per.
Right.
This one had 3 different arcs that were 4 episodes each.
Mm-hmm.
And
none of them
I
were
think
good.
that contributed a lot to why so much of each part was rushed.
Yeah, it also doesn't allow any side characters to have any sort of development or interesting things to do. Especially that Valkyrie girl who should have been a good character. Like,
so,
everything's there. It just didn't know what to actually do with her.
She was introduced. She was clearly meant to be an important character because at the end of the season, she's made the final rook. She's the final piece that's been held out for like a season and a half. And I feel like there was supposed to be something much more ceremonious. The problem is, she's introduced in the middle of the first arc of the season, and then basically is a side character who barely interacts with the family outside of she was not even because she was left at their house. She was left at their house like an abandoned kitten. And then she's just there. They have nothing else to do with her. They don't have any interactions. We don't see any interaction between her and Rise. Honestly, that's why it makes the most sense how she joins the family, which I think is hilarious, because if they tried to do it any other way, but winning her over with health plans and better insurance rates, it would make no sense. It wouldn't.
That was one of the few funny moments where it's literally Rias breaking down their benefits.
Season 3 is very bad, but it ends strong. I'll give it that.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Oh, yeah,
It
but...
ends with the strongest comedy of the series.
Actually, you said it was 3 arcs with 4 episodes each. No, it's more like
4.
1, 2, 3... Yeah. Actually... No,
4.
hang on.
I'm
counting
No, it's...
Skyrim.
No. It starts with the cat girl, then it goes to Loki, then it goes...
Oh my god.
Then it goes to Nun Rapist, and then it goes to Loki again.
Yes.
So 4.
So it starts out, we all got to go down to hell for a peace conference thing, and now they've established, there are other mythologies as well, so Norse gods are just going to randomly show up.
Hi, I'm Odin, and I want to go to a strip bar.
Yeah, it's like, that seems really out of character from what I know about Norse mythology. But anyway, so
Yeah,
Loki
like if it was...
It highly is! Odin is not this character. They're portraying Odin as Zeus, and that's why this makes no sense. I mean,
they
here's
didn't
the
really
thing,
do
too.
much with the other mythologies. Like, Son Goku is on the Chaos Brigade. Why? Because King Arthur's there, because, we got to... Clearly a Fate fan, got to shove that notion in.
Why is King Arthur on the bad guy's side?
They're
don't
not
do anything
even
with
the
it
bad...
either.
No, that's the thing. They're not even technically bad guys.
They're just kind of in
like
the middle.
guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
like
not to
the
mention
actual...
the whole catgirl thing, because turns out
The
Kaneko
actual
and her sister are Nekomata. They're yokai.
The actual bad guys are the old devil faction who are big in the...
Which are basically killed off at the end of the season, so I mean, if they're not supposed to be the villains anymore, who is?
Hang on.
Loki.
The
And that's because he wants Ragnarok.
Hey,
Oh my god.
God damn it.
Jonathan,
Loki's
I'm sorry.
character throughout this entire show. Ragnarok. There you go. There's Loki.
This is clearly all the author knew about Loki.
And why the fuck do the Chaos Brigade betrayed Loki? Because he wants to bring about Ragnarok, which is like the end of gods. So shouldn't that like be good for their whole causing the complete annihilation of reality thing? Well, it's good for one of them, except Valley doesn't seem to want that. He just wants to go fight that fucking dragon. And I don't know why the other two are there, or King Arthur either. Like, why are those 3 there?
Yeah, and they all basically bail once it looks like Loki is loose and like, yeah, no, bye. Oh, and we're taking your dog.
Yeah,
They wanted the dog. Funny thing is, I think the whole point they wanted the dog was they wanted his fangs.
Yeah, to like open a dimensional rift, but they don't really establish that well. And also, if they just wanted his fucking dog, why didn't they take it earlier?
You're putting way too much thought into this, more than the author or the adaptive script people
I
did.
think I'm putting way too much thought still into why they picked Norse mythology, and I think you're just right that they wanted to take advantage of the fact that Norse mythology was like more in vogue because of Marvel's 4 than Greek. Because every character introduced from Norse mythology fits better with a character from Greek mythology. Odin is a better Zeus. The Valkyrie could easily have been like Athena or someone. And Hades would have had a much better motivation because Loki is supposed to be this god of tricks. He's not supposed to be like this all-encompassing evil asshole. He's more of a trickster. Yes, he'll get people killed, but he's not overly evil. Hades has a reason because he got screwed out of domains by Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nothing about Loki makes any sense. And the old devil faction could have made sense if they've done more with them, but they didn't. And they ended up
fucking nowhere.
No, they didn't come out of fucking nowhere. They came out of season 2.
Because of course there's a bunch of like demon political bullshit with the different noble families wanting to compete for power and titles and whatnot.
Hey, since we're talking about that right now, I want to bring up something that's been bugging me since it's very clearly this was written by a straight man who doesn't know shit about like having multiple partners.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do demons have like one-on-one marriages?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that they made
They're
Sir
demons.
Sex, Rias's brother, just have a regular marriage with a kid and everything, and not him being like a harem king. And then Issei's like, "Oh my god, you're my idol."
There are 2 fucking harem kings in the show that are demons, Riser and that one asshole Astaroth, who except Astaroth is a rapist prick, but Riser, they never like give any indication that Riser is abusing his servants. Like, they just all seem fine with it.
Yeah.
It's
I
weird.
mean, he's a complete and total prick to everyone, but it didn't seem like he was abusive toward his own family.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
So yeah,
I really wish he would have come back instead of having all these annoying fucking side characters who they try to give like little mini arcs, like the one guy, not Issei guy, getting the like fire thread thing, and then he just almost gets killed by Loki anyways, so it doesn't matter. Or
I'm kinda glad they haven't brought him
I
back.
just remembered. Apparently they decided in season 3 that Kiba and like the vice president had a crush on each other or something, because when they're fighting against Loki, like Kiba's really protective of her and she's blushing, and this is the first time this has ever been hinted at.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I
remember?
don't even remember that.
Same. here.
Remember the student council's there, and like the vice president and president are there, and the vice president is like talking with Kiba. She blushes around him a little. He ends up saving her at one point.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the chick with like the full counter bullshit move. Yeah.
Yeah, what? It's just like there's so much going on in that Loki fight they're trying to sum up, and none of it works. Like, even the Phoenix tier setup they did doesn't work because it was done so obviously
God,
that
yes, like they go to the meeting and then Riser's, Sundari, twin-tailed little sister is like, "Oh, I guess I'm okay with you now. I'm gonna give you this thing that's totally not a Chekhov's gun. Bye."
you have to say little sister in air quotes. See, Riser's a coward and he won't fuck his own sister, so he has this girl pretend to be his sister. They established that in season 1.
That's right. Oh my god, that's right, they did.
It's just making Riser seem like possibly able to have a redemption arc one day, but I guess it's never going to happen.
But yeah, okay, after all the Loki nonsense, and then we get to Astaroth, who is this other demon guy who is so blatantly a rapist creep, and he starts skeezing on Azia because he was the demon that she saved that caused her to be kicked out of the church and kickstarted her own plot.
And it turns out he planned that in the first place to get close to her.
And he kidnapped...
Because his whole hobby is making women of the church fall into despair and then making them demons.
By raping them.
Yep.
And making them slaves.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
So
So it's very satisfying when Issei just like nearly beats all the life out of him in the one most cited fist fight I've ever seen in an anime.
I think that was supposed to be also like a moment where we're supposed to see how far Issei's come. Because I think the whole reason this was very similar, different in some ways, but very similar to like the Riser Phoenix arc in season 1, is because Riser Phoenix, they lost to him, and it took basically Issei everything it could to beat him, and then this guy was just curb stomped, like nothing.
And Issei doesn't even get to kill him, just some other guy with like the dumbest name I've ever heard. I wish I wrote it down. It was like...
Shalba?
Shalba, that's it. Shalba Lucifer.
And he
the
was like,
most terrifying
I
villain.
am the mastermind behind
No, wait,
this.
I thought it was Shalba Beelzebub.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck at this point? It's the same thing.
Wait, aren't Beelzebub and Lucifer the same fucking guy? I don't care anymore.
Let's not get into Bible mythology or we'll be here forever. But yeah, he ends up killing the Astaroth guy because he's like, "Oh, yeah, you called us the old blood?" And then he gets like easily murdered by Issei because everyone thinks Asia's dead because that guy sent her to another dimension, but then Vali found her. so she's not dead.
Oh god, yeah, that thing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no,
That was
Ozzy-
the biggest MacGuffin bullshit.
Yes!
Like Valley, Goku, and the cat girl that said Muda Muda are just like rummaging through the void.
It makes no sense as well when they establish the dimensional gap rules.
Actually, I would argue it does, because what I'm getting off of Valley is that he wants good rivals. He wants challenges. He doesn't care about anything else. And so if he wants to end up fighting Issei in the future, he needs Issei at his best, not a grief-stricken lunatic. So in that twisted sense, the people close to Issei mean something to him because he needs them alive for him to actually be stable enough to grow as a person.
Yeah, so Ozzy gets kidnapped to this other dimension,
Boom!
and Issei fucking loses it. He's just like, hey, Ozzy, where are you, Ozzy? Come back, Ozzy. And then he basically goes psycho, and he starts to transform into a dragon, and...
It turns out it's partly because of Loki's influence, though. Like, when he's having the visions of that girl from season 1 who basically tricked him, it's Loki's curse playing off his big emotional weakness of his fear that these girls he's in love with secretly despise him.
Which I couldn't blame them, but... Yeah, that's the final twist. It's like, oh, no, Loki didn't die. He was just captured, and he implanted this curse on Issei and Rias because...
It's not really a twist because they highlight it very obviously at the end of the Loki battle. Like, he outright says and declares that he's going to put a curse on them.
A curse on both your houses.
Yeah, it's very obvious where they're going with it. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. And I appreciate what they're trying to do with Issei's inner conflict, except because of how rushed this fucking season is, they don't have enough time to actually build it up. And the same problem happens with Rias, who gets possessed in the last arc, whose entire thing is that she's worried she's becoming disconnected from Issei because he doesn't treat her the same as he treats everyone else.
And because the other girls are starting to get really competitive for his attention, like Akeno starts really horning in on him.
And it's her mistake to be so focused on Akeno because obviously Synovia is just going to go in there one day and fuck him when no one's looking.
Also, that was another thing
she's
that
a fitness player,
I was
man.
super disappointed with between season 1 and 2, is that they made Akeno out in season 1 to be this basically sadomasochist, and I was hoping when she started going after Issei that would translate over.
Nope.
But apparently it didn't, and that was super disappointing.
All it translates into is to really blatantly obvious oral sex jokes because she has to suck excess power out of his dragon arm through his finger.
And they just sort of give up on that like halfway through season 2.
Yeah.
Which is good. I'm going to give them credit for not
But
keeping
yeah,
that
at the
around.
end of season
I also...
going back to season
Did
3.
anyone else notice how during those scenes, and like Akeno scenes throughout season 2, how there's always this little jazz number that plays
there's
like when they
sleazy
have those
sax
scenes
music.
together?
Yeah,
It's the worst.
the music in these shows is never good when it comes to the sexy scenes. Like, I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Testament of Sister New Devil, which is a show I'm very divided on. Maybe I'll get into it another day, but it has like the worst fucking sexy music ever with like electric guitar. It's terrible. It's just, oh my god, do you guys really think this is sexy? And keep in mind that Testament of Sister New Devil actually has outright BDSM scenes. So, like, it's not like chastised bullshit like this is. It does go there. And they pick that fucking music. It's terrible.
Yes.
Oh god.
But coming back to the end of season 3, so everyone ends up fighting against the possessed Rias, and then Issei's doppelganger, and then because they're in the pocket dimension, somehow it ends up like the end of Evangelion, and they're on a beach somewhere, and they're like, let's fight together. Yeah. And then they get out of the dimension.
Yep.
Never explained, never shown, and apparently they don't remember.
Oh shit, we never even mentioned that the Angel Girl appears during this season again, and like explains that angels are divided like cards, which makes no sense.
You want to know
Yeah.
why we didn't explain that? Because it's such a throwaway line that they never do anything with.
And and also she's completely useless. She
Yeah.
does nothing throughout season 3.
She has a piece of Excalibur, and like they haven't even. I don't even think they've established what the piece of Excalibur does, unless it's the whole stretchy thing. So apparently, Excalibur in this show has 7 pieces that have 7 different powers, and we see these powers exemplified in various ways. And hers is supposed to be Excalibur Mimic, which I think is supposed to do something cool, but I don't think we're ever actually shown what it does.
Oh my god, I just realized that King Arthur doesn't have Excalibur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
He has like cool. I don't even remember what his sword's name is, but I remembered it was an Excalibur.
I think it was like Pentadragon or something like that.
Yeah, because there's
No,
multiple
he
holy
says-
swords. All of them have the name Excalibur.
No, the King Arthur doesn't have an Excalibur sword. He has some other sword that like cuts through dimensions.
God.
Yeah.
Bullshit. But it all ends up with the moment we have been teasing the entire episode. Because at the very end, when they're settling back into their high school bullshit, we learn that Issei went to the underworld to do a kid show, and this is when we learn about the Boob Dragon song.
Oh, bye!
And they outright explain in like while they're watching it who made it, and it's like Azazel did like the lyrics, and like the composition was done by Reese's brother, and choreography was done by the older Leviathan crossdresser girl, and it's like perfect.
And
Of
so this
course.
song's playing in the background, like walking through the woods, he saw boobies. And the music just go boing, and there's like jaunty clarinets and everything.
And this is how they end out season 3. And honestly, they couldn't have. Like, it was a terrible season, but that was a magical moment.
I actually took screenshots from that sequence, and I like this one I'm uploading here. And just look at their fucking reactions.
Yes, they're like, oh.
Except Ozio, who's just utterly entranced.
Well, of course, she's a moe baby. She's just like,
Oh, I
colors.
took another one with her, and look, she just outright says, "You've become an idol for children," and she's so happy for him.
Oh, man.
And Gasper reacts a lot of the same ways whenever Issei does his stupid perverted bullshit. Like, remember in season 2 where Gasper's whole thing is that he's a shut-in because he's a half vampire, he never got treated well, and when his powers awakened, he ended up being unable to control them and had to be locked away. And so while they're training him and failing, Issei eventually just has a man-to-man talk with him. He talks about his own insecurity, and it's actually a good moment. But then he starts talking about the time he touched the president's boobs. And then he starts talking about the time he talked with basically Satan about his little sister. And the guy explained, hey, why haven't you used your like boost powers and make her boobs bigger? And he's like, I can do that? I can't even imagine it.
And Gasper's just like, yeah.
Eventually, at one point, when he gets his time-stopping powers under control, and Issei convinces him to do it by saying, "It's time to realize our dream," and so he freezes on, like, "All the boobs we can touch," and Gasper's so on board with it.
But yeah, you're right. The moments between them are actually nice. One, because Issei shut up about boobs for a few goddamn minutes, but he actually did interact nicely with him. He gave him, I don't know if it's supposed to be like a PSP or a Vita or something, so he has something to do when he hides in his box. Like, it is legitimately sweet.
There's so many good characters that you can actually do something with, like so many other light novel shows, and just like those other light novel shows, there's so much bullshit happening that there's never time for any of that. Like Azazel, Zenovia, Gasper, you could just give them their own show and it would be perfect, but there's so much other bullshit going on that none of them really get to shine with their individual characteristics.
So that basically covers the plot, but then I guess into the production itself, and it's notable when over 3 seasons of animation, the most fluid animation you get is that first ending, which is very clearly rotoscoped from pole dancers.
Yeah, the first ending of this show is so horny.
I want to see that the
ridiculous.
animator, because that was apparently animated by one guy, justified to the studio. No, I need these expenses for the strip club to be covered. It's for research.
To be honest, they're making High School DxD the anime. They understand. They understand.
You're joking, right? I'm sure the executive producers were sitting there in the room as they were filming the pole dancers. I have no doubt in my mind about this. We have like a couple pole dancers picked out. We hear images. We just need a grain lit, so we can pay them to have them come in and do the pole dance. What date is this? And they're like signing the check as they're doing this.
I would actually
this is how I see this.
I would actually argue that the ending of like the Gasper arc in season 2 is much hornier because it has the characters posing in the very obvious hentai poses.
Yes, even I noticed that.
Yeah, like I was kind of shocked they got away with what the pose they put Risa in, because she's doing that pose where her feet are together under her bottom and her arms are behind her and it's just showing everything off. I only see that pose in porn in Queensblade. Mm-hmm. Oh god, I just remembered the entire church in Queensblade fights by making poses like that to cast holy spells. I just remembered that and I'm so happy.
And going back to the production, there's something I noticed in the cinematography of this show. There's one thing that's very common to ecchi shows like this, and one that, at least as far as I'm aware of, is unique to High School DxD. One is the fact. The first one is the fact that it literally objectifies women. Like, basically, anytime the girls start talking, if the camera does not start on their boobs, it drifts there, and it lingers there, staring at them. Because
I'm just kind of numb to that at this point.
Yeah, but it's so weird, because it's basically just like, you don't need to see their faces, you don't need to see them talking, just stare at this nipple.
Oh no, that's not weird. You said it objectifies them, and yeah, that's how objectification works.
And the other thing that is unique to the show is, I swear to God, there are more Dutch angles in this show than goddamn Battlefield Earth.
Oh yeah, I noticed that when I was trying to take a lot of screenshots of Synovia, because I might have a problem, guys. I don't even take like sexy screenshots, except like one I just take. Yeah, she's great. She's wonderful.
And the thing is, in
but yeah,
studies,
there's a lot of awkward screen caps I could have taken, because everything is slanted so often that a lot of things don't feel like they go into frame properly.
Yeah,
like there's no focus.
The thing is, Dutch angles in like film studies, the whole idea is like you're throwing the viewer off kilter. It's meant to suggest something unnerving or disturbing. But here it's used because we gotta fit as much titty as possible in the frame.
That's not even accurate, because they don't really fit anything more extra in the frame. They just like try to show
longer.
No, they just try to show off more of the body, but because of the way the uniforms are designed, there's nothing inherently sexy about that except the boobs pointed up. So it doesn't do anything except just like confuse you. Why is it doing this?
Yeah, it's just visual chaos, because it's always throwing you on the side, and sometimes it goes full 90 degrees tilted on its side. So like doing that, which is supposed to be like weird and unnerving, with your fan service, is sending all sorts of visual mixed signals.
Season 1 probably had the best animation overall, and then it got progressively worse, as you would expect from a show like this, but I was always confused by the camera angles. They just never feel like they belong there.
Yeah. And of course, despite the fact that there are a lot of fights, they are all very, very mediocre. They're all very mediocre in their direction, because, you know, we need to put more emphasis on fluidly animating the boob jiggle.
Yeah, God, there's so many boobs in this, I'm just now, like, numb to boobs. Like,
I would compare it to like sitting on the seashore and just having the waves crash over you again and again and again. It's not even like they hurt. You just get numb to it after a while. But instead of waves, it's just boobs.
I think these shows often forget that an important part of erotica is mystery. And so they just throw everything in there because they can, and the end result is just numbing most of the time. And you just know that almost all of the best scenes are just going to be on a GIF somewhere, and no one's ever going to watch the show. Mm-hmm. Like, I've never watched Seikon no Quasar's anime, but I have seen countless GIFs of it, so I feel like I might as well have. There are so many GIFs of it. That show might be the horniest thing ever made. Like, even hornier than the manga. And the manga, well, it came up with the premise. Just like, at some point you gotta have some moderation. Fucking hell.
Yeah. But that's about all you can say for the production, which is kind of sad for a show that ran 3 seasons. And not even all that long ago. 2012 to 2015.
It might get a 4th soon. There's one in development, actually.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to bring that up because I figured we would just come back and talk about season 4 when it came out.
The scores... Yeah, the score's pretty bad, I need to point out, too, which is expected for these sorts of shows. They never have good soundtracks. I really hate that one violin piece that sounds pretty on its own, but in the context of every single scene in this show, it never fits. Like, you can't have pretty music like that on fucking Highschool DxD, the show where the main character goes Super Saiyan because he's horny for boobs.
I think the only time I've ever gotten mad at the musical score of an anime was at the end of season 3, when they had the magical Boob Dragon song, but then didn't end the season there. They played like 10 more seconds of that violin music. I'm like, no, don't ruin it for me! I don't need pretty, I need Boob Dragon song.
This show is... Oh god, it's so hard to really sum it up. I mean, I'll just go back to what I said earlier. This is basically Bleach, except 90% horny instead of 40% horny. Like, there's a lot of cool ideas here. There's a ton of interesting characters, but there's never time to actually use them properly. And the bigger problem here is that, like, Bleach did try to focus on all these other characters, usually usually sacrificing pacing in the process, but a lot of fans like that because those characters were so well written and interesting, and they usually got some sort of cap to their arc or to their story. That never happens here, especially in the 3rd season, which has so much shit crammed into it. There's no time for anything to breathe. The 1st season works because it keeps things simple. You have the bad guys for the arcs, you have the good guys, you have the basic dynamic, you see how the main character grows into that dynamic, you get emotional connections between a few characters, you get hints at things to come, it works. Season 2 starts getting more into lore poisoning, which happens with so many bad light novel shows where it's just like throwing in all sorts of ideas that could be cool, but they're all competing for attention and just like a gray mush. And it only comes alive when you get to the comedy episodes and all the silly moments again, because when it tries being serious in that season, it doesn't work. And then you hit season 3, which is just a tone-deaf disaster that keeps rushing forward with no specific goal in mind, no interesting developments for any characters, a bunch of half-assed villains that don't even make sense when in the context of its own mythology, and just like a lot of phoning it in, 1 or 2 good moments, more Synovius stills, which I very much okay with, but that's all. It's so forgettable and like actually anger-inducing at a few points. You just don't want to deal with it anymore.
It is exhausting. That's what I personally found. Like, most of the points you made are pretty much the ones I would. That the 1st season was the most solid and the most interesting, and then it goes and it just gives up. But between its particular brand of horny and all the light novel bullshit, yeah, it just gets exhausting.
Imagine how much.
Stop.
Imagine how much better this would be with an actual queer writer who realizes that, hey, people can have multiple partners. And it doesn't have to be weird. And, like, you don't have to have, like, the polygamy bullshit you had with Riser. You can just have a bunch of people into each other in one big relationship. And it's not that hard. The elements are there in this show. Like Zenobia is clearly not straight, but there's just a lot of... It's very weird to me that they pick demons, but the second major arc of the show is about trying to stop an arranged marriage. They're demons. They fuck. That's what they do. They don't care about society norms. But the show is just so full of them and it doesn't work. Not even the horny is that funny or interesting most of the time. Just exhausting. Because it's so basic bitch bullshit. Bad intending.
You're right. It's a lot of interesting ideas, but I think the problem is, instead of taking time to do research and truly figure out, how these ideas can mesh together, it was just kind of stapled together using boobs. And that's really the biggest fault in this show, is that a lot of what could have been made better was not, in terms of making sexier scenes for the fan service.
One thing I will never understand about ecchi anime like this is that not one of them ever focuses on the back of the neck. That is fucking erotic. Someone fix this. I've only seen that in forced cross-dressing porn comics. That is the only place I have seen it in. What the fuck? You are all weak. Basic bitches, all of ya.
Yeah, I think the funniest part of that was that for me, Jonathan kept cutting out, and so it sounded way dirtier to me than it probably did to you, Megan.
I actually just kept pausing because I was trying to think of what next to say, and I was waiting for you guys to say something, but then I thought of something, and... Well, anyways, I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah, I think we're at the point we can rate it.
This is going to be our longest episode of Heavy Storms ever.
I mean, there was a lot to cover.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like we covered nothing at all.
We really did.
Except Suzumiya, who is great and should be with every other good character in a bad light novel show on her own show. Get her with Fee from, like, Undefeated Bahamut Chronicle and that scientist lady from Anti-Magic Academy and go do something cool. Not this bullshit.
So what do we rate by the way? I think it's like out of 5.
Oh yeah, it works like the hurricane system. 1 is the least damaging, 5 is the most damaging, and I'll go ahead and start us off.
1's the least damaging? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 5 would be the worst. So just heads up, we're gonna rate each season separately since I think that's the most fair. So
okay,
I'm not gonna rate season 1 because I think it's genuinely okay. It works for what it is. It has some thought behind it. I genuinely like that first season a good bit. Season 2, I'm going to give a 2. I was considering giving it a 1 at first, but because there were some really good high moments there, but so much of it didn't work and so much of it was so boring that I can't do that in good conscience. And then you hit season 3, which I'm not going to give a 4 or 5 because I need to save those for the real enemy like Fractal or Shuffle or Magical Warfare. Oh my god.
Or Diabolic Lovers.
Yeah, no. Season 3 was bad. It wasn't like Poopa bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Ooh.
Have you ever seen Magical Warfare? It's a fucking experience.
I have not seen Magical Warfare. I listen to you guys talk about it. I never want to see Magical Warfare.
Everyone needs to watch Magical Warfare. It is a rite of passage. It is the fucking, like, Plan 39 of anime. But,
oh god.
But anyways, I'm going to give Season 3 a hard 3 because there's nothing about it worth... I mean, there is good ideas in there, but the execution is just so terrible. It's almost a numbing experience at points.
As for me, I'd probably it correspond with season numbers. I'd put season 1 at a 1 because it's dumb, but there's bits of it that might work. And if it stopped there, I would have dismissed it as purely harmless. Season 2 is a 2 because it starts getting dumber and less focused and more heavier on the harem content. And then season 3 is a 3 because it goes in the completely opposite direction, just submits entirely to the light novel bullshit, and as we pointed out, it just becomes a fucking mess.
And what about you, Walt?
I kind of have to take a page from both your books. I don't want to rate season 1 because, Megan, I think you didn't enjoy it because clearly this show was not for you.
No.
Which I fully accept your rating, but I don't feel like I can rate season 1 because it was not really bad enough to be considered a bad anime. But season 2 is definitely a 2, and season 3 is a 3. Season 2 started to go off the rails, even though I still kind of love it, but just how completely Issei has just fallen into this character, and how they just completely played it up. And season 3 is just such a plotted mess. A not plotted mess, really. But it's not, like, the worst thing I've ever seen. It's still it's still clearly trying to keep on the rails, whereas I've seen shows that go so far off the rails that just make no sense.
And most of them were light novel shows, I'm betting.
Maybe. I don't know. I know Pupa wasn't a light novel. Was Karen Seki a light novel?
Karen Seki? Could you say that again?
Karen Senki? Have either of you ever even heard of this?
No.
Could you describe it?
That'll be a bitch. The official synopsis says it is about a post-apocalyptic universe where a girl housing her little sister as a magical girl in her heart has to fight against the robot apocalypse. But if you actually watch the show, then you'll never understand that.
The hell?
It's a short series, 11 minutes per episode.
I'll explain why I never heard of it.
I highly recommend it. It's so fucking insane. But no, if I had to describe a 5, I had a show, like, probably Dog and Scissors to me is a 5.
Oh, you're weak.
Yeah, I finished that.
That's barely a 1.
No, I'm not weak. Like, that show is bad.
That show is bad.
Dog and Scissors is bad, but it's like average bad. Like, that's a 1 at worst. If you want actual bad, you go to fucking Fractal, which is basically just shitting on the internet for 12 episodes and even comparing people who use the internet to rapists.
Or Diabolic Lovers, which had me screaming in rage.
Or, of course...
Diabolic Lovers was fucking horrible.
Or, of course, Magical Warfare, which I must repeat is the second worst anime I have ever seen. In some ways, I consider it worse than Shuffle, but goddamn if it doesn't entertain you in those last 6 episodes. It is magical.
I disagree, though. I think that show, Dog and Scissors, is fucking horrendous.
Then you're a lightweight, dude. You have never seen a bad comedy if you think that's the worst.
No. Let me tell you something. Since I have watched Shuffle, and that is fucking miserable, but honestly, I would rate that the same. I'd rate both Dog and Scissors and Shuffle a 5, because those are, like, both miserable experiences. Because here's the thing. To me, there is nothing worse than a comedy that will not make me laugh. Because at that point, your show is nothing, and I am literally wasting my life watching it. And that's why Dog and Scissors to me is a 5.
I laughed at the masochist
let me tell you
lady
something.
because I'm her.
as bad as season 3 of High School DxD was, there were funny moments. There were moments I liked. I can point to something that was not a waste of my life. Dog and Scissor was a waste of my fucking life.
I like the masochist woman because I'm her.
No, that show was not. That show was the least funny shit. I'm
not going to defend Dog and Scissors because it is bad.
Neither am I.
Come on,
I don't
guys.
expect anyone to.
Come on, guys. Fight the real enemy. Fight Gate. Actual literal war propaganda.
Yeah, you win.
Or Mahoka.
You're
Actual literal objectivist war propaganda. That says the Chinese did the rape of Nanking.
And maybe we'll get to those shows someday, but that would have to be.
We're
for
never
another
watching
special.
Mahoka as long as I'm hosting this show because I don't want to give that any more fucking
And
attention.
I already dealt with Gate.
Yeah, there's limits to how far I'm going to go. Ah, Jesus. I still need to get that new podcast idea set up with Tom. We're going to look at a good game, The Silver Case by Suda51. And for the next Heavy Storms, we're going to be looking at Megan's pick from last time.
What was the pick? What was the
Ceres
pick?
Celestial Legend.
Oh my god.
All
It
you
was
need to
either-
know, it is from the creator of Kyousougiga.
I wish I had known that. But then again, it was either going to be that or Ninja Slayer, and I've already experienced half a Ninja Slayer, and it was miserable. But yeah, that's what's going on. Have a happy Halloween, everyone. Remember that candy corn is good.
Jonathan, I have one last thing to say before we end this.
But
Thank you so much for having me back. And please, if you do Black Clover, have me back. I need to hear that. I need to hear the Hungry Joker rant part 2.
I'm sorry, no, but Black Clover is going to go on for like 100 episodes. We're never covering it.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, you just know that's going to be popular horseshit.
Are you joking? It's already popular horseshit as a manga. That anime
It's
is
just
set.
lazy Naruto, and Naruto was already kind of terrible.
No. If we're lucky, the first season will only get like 12 episodes to gauge reaction, and that means we could cover it.
So you're
Nah.
hoping it at least turns into a world trigger.
Oh god, I forgot. Oh, remember how lazy the animation was? Like, they couldn't even animate a car properly.
Good times. But that will have to wait for another day.
Anyways, happy Halloween, everyone. If you haven't seen the Indie Cent episode on Alan Wake yet, I highly suggest you do that because Alan Wake is amazing, and I'm going to compare it to Homestuck, and nobody can stop me. They're thematically the same. Damn it.
I've played Alan Wake. I can't deny that.
Mr. Scratch is just fucking Doc Scratch. Bite me. Anyways, we'll see you for the next regular episode. Have a good Halloween, and if you're a Patreon backer listening to this early, well, good for you. Please give me more money. Thank you. We'll now return you back to your regularly scheduled programming.
さあみんなハイスクール DD ボーン始まるよとある国の隅っこにおっぱい大好きドラゴン住んでいるお天気の日はおっぱい探してお散歩だドラゴンおっぱいドラゴンもみもみチューチューパフンパフンいろいろなおっぱいあるけれどやっぱり大きいのが一番大好きおっぱいドラゴン今日も飛ぶとある街の隅っこでおっぱい大好きドラゴン笑ってた嵐の日でもおっぱい押すと元気になれるドラゴンおっぱいドラゴンポチッとポチッとズムズムいやたくさんおっぱい見たけれどやっぱり大きいのが一番大好きおっぱいドラゴン今日も押す砂浜でおっぱい大好きドラゴンはしゃいでた夏の海はおっぱいいっぱい夢いっぱいドラゴンおっぱいドラゴンバインブルルンボインボイン水着のおっぱいすごいけどや やっぱりおきのが一番大好きおっぱいドラゴン今日も行くとあるお乳の谷間見ておっぱい大好きドラゴン恋をしたスイッチ姫のおっぱいはとっても素敵だドラゴンドラゴンおっぱいドラゴンもみもみポチッとボインボインたくさんおっぱいあるけれどやっぱりスイッチ姫が大好きおっぱいドラゴン今日は寝るいろいろおっぱいあったけどどうしてもスイッチ姫が大好きおっぱいドラゴン明日も飛ぶ